Yeah, well, there are four big divides in this election, and I was surprised by each one of them. Let's start with gender. The gap among men, Trump took men 54 to 43, lost women 46 to 53. So the gap among women is smaller than the gap among men. That is to say, he had a bigger advantage with men than she had with women. That was pretty surprising, and particularly in this election, that was important because 53% of the electorate were women. The second thing that surprised me was race. Now, you'd expect him as a Republican candidate to do well among whites, and he did, 56-43, but among blacks, 16%, which may sound anemic, but that is the highest percentage among blacks since at least 1984. And among Hispanics, 42, the largest number since 2004. And the other, which includes Asian Americans, 41-55. He overperformed what a Republican should do with blacks, Hispanics, Asian Americans, and other. So the race issue, the race divide was to his advantage.
Well, so what was driving that? I mean, if you go across, you cut across so many demographic groups, what do you think was the common denominator there that drove them into the Republican camp?
I think it was a combination of things. First of all, the economy was people who had to deal with the burden of inflation more than other elements of the population, the concerns about their own economic future, and I think also this issue of wokeness, of extreme positions on cultural issues that offended people who are sort of working class and typical patriotic Americans. Take a look at this. This will blow your mind. The next two. No college degree. Now remember, a bunch of these people, about 56% would fall into the category of no college degree, but many of those did attend college or might have a community college degree.
Sure.
55-43, Trump over Harris, and of those with a college degree, 42-56. So what he got was the support of people who were, sort of aspirationally hoping the economy was going to be better for them, and had a view that it had been better when he was president. And this will really blow your mind. If you made less than $50,000 household income, you voted 50-48 for him. And if you had 50 to 99,000, it was 52-46. And if your household income was $100,000 or more, you voted for her 53-43 over him.
Yeah,
so in other words, the breakpoint is 100,000 of income.
I've never seen that in any election, I don't think, in my lifetime, Carl. And that tells me that what leaps out to me about that is inflation, prices. It's people who live off salaries and wages. In other words, they don't have a lot of assets, they don't have stocks, they may not have a home that is worth $1 million, but they would go, paycheck to paycheck, and they're the ones who really got hit by inflation. And it doesn't matter, what race you are, what ethnicity you are, gender you are, you're the ones who suffered.
Right, and it explains why now that inflation is receding, why it still is an issue, because they remember when a dozen eggs was $1.50. They remember what the cost of clothes when they sent their kids back to school were in 2019 and 2020, and now what they had to do in 2024. They remember the cost of things as they used to be every time they go to the grocery store, and as they try and take that paycheck and stretch it as far as they used to be able to, they can't do it any longer. So the economic issues fell there as well. But I also think this issue of wokeness pops up there, and maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but it just strikes me that both campaigns say that the ads on transgender issues like women in sports and gender treatments being given to prisoners in jails, that surprised both sides with its efficacy. The Trump campaign put up an ad and found that it had enormous purchase. The Harris campaign was watching that ad and seeing it had enormous purchase, moving voters, and it had to move voters who were in the beneath 100,000 and no college degree more than it did those with college degrees and a bigger income.
Carl, one of the weaknesses, though, in this election for Republicans was somewhat down ballot. I mean, they did pick up at least 4 in the Senate. Why didn't the Trump victory extend so far down ballot?
Well, for one thing, the Democrats had a huge financial advantage, and they used that advantage handsomely. You take a look at, for example, Wisconsin and Michigan. The winning Democrat candidates spent far more than the losing Republican candidates did, and both of those candidates, for example, in the Senate races, came this close to winning. The Democrats were saved by a mountain of cash that came to them from people in tech and Hollywood and the financial sector, and they used it adroitly to win some narrow races, and particularly in the Senate contest.